welcome to a special post-World Cup edition of Seattle City Makers. I'm your host, Jon Scholes, and I am delighted to be joined by Maya Mendoza-Exstrom, who is the Chief Business Officer for the Seattle Reign, and Beth Knox, the President and CEO of the Seattle Sports Commission. Beth and Maya were the two co-chairs of the bid and effort to bring the World Cup to Seattle, which began nearly 10 years ago, and I was pleased to be able to sit down with them shortly after we concluded matches here in Seattle to get their reactions to what was an incredible 4 or 5 weeks or so of soccer in Seattle, to discuss how we keep it all going and what's next. Hope you enjoy my conversation with Beth and Maya. Well, thank you for making time for this in all sincerity. I know it's been a busy several weeks, and it's been a busy several years for both of you in making what happened happen. And did it exceed your expectations of what the World Cup delivered for Seattle? And maybe we can say it the other way around, of what Seattle delivered for the World Cup. Beth, to you first.
For me, it completely exceeded expectations. And I was prepared for there to be challenges where there were disappointments or something didn't quite hit the bar. That didn't materialize. Of course, there were things that occurred along the way that we had to be fixed or adjusted, and nothing is ever perfect. But by and large, I felt like it knocked it out of the park. Seattle did.
I completely agree. Maybe my expectations were really high because this was the heart of Seattle soccer culture on display for 3 weeks. And we know what that is. And so for the world to be introduced to something that rivals Madrid or Barcelona or London, we knew that was who we were, I think, in a soccer community. But yeah, it probably exceeded my expectations because I am a Seattleite. That the world embraced it in that same way, that's probably beyond my wildest dreams. But yeah, it's unfortunately a dream to wake up from.
And I mean, there were some, I don't know that this was like the majority held perspective, but that sort of, it's going to be like 6 home Seahawks playoff games with a lot of people watching on TV around the world. And, you couldn't, maybe you don't want to fault somebody for having that point of view because we've never done this. We've never had it here. We've never had a distributed model like what FIFA did across 16 cities and 3 continents. But I heard somebody say that on a panel I was moderating like a couple of weeks before the first match. And they weren't sort of claiming or downplaying that that's what it's going to be or it's only going to be that, but sort of like not knowing what it was going to be. And it was obviously so much more. So did you both expect like the energy outside of the stadium, the vibes, the marches to the match, the watch parties, just like the level of energy and feet on the street? That kind of blew my mind.
It did for me too. And I think because there was so much unknown. We hadn't experienced something like this previously. And once we moved to the distributed fan celebration model, then that changed expectations as well. So now we weren't going to have a single location with everyone there. So that's where I came into it not knowing quite what to expect. But the number of people downtown that were just enjoying downtown and all of the different aspects of this community, that's the part that I loved so much. And I felt like the combination of visitors who were just wowed by Seattle, but in many ways, more importantly, the locals who rediscovered the city of Seattle, rediscovered their love for this city. To me, that's my favorite takeaway from this World Cup.
And I think, we have to, in order to conceptualize these things, put them in American terms. And so for those folks who, haven't traveled around the world and seen what a World Cup is, it makes so much sense to quantify it in terms of the largest sporting footprints that make sense in America. But I don't think you can quantify the qualitative realities of a World Cup, that it's just so different. And so my expectation was that there would be massive march to the match, that there would be a huge, because that's how people travel to World Cups.
And you've been to
Yes, I've been to multiple,
yeah.
And it's my favorite part of it. My favorite part of it is the matches you don't have a ticket for, and the random, alley cafe you stumble into because it's the only place with a seat and there's a TV there, and all you want to do is grab a beer and watch the game. And it was so fun to see all of our alleys activated that way. So many places. And so my family decided to not travel to any other games. So we only did games here, and we did 3 staycations in the city because we wanted to keep our money and just sort of like do the fan experience, but like in our own city. And just the like places I never would have expected to buy a TV and pop up a cafe. I'm like, whoa, they were leaning in. And then fan, that's how fans consume these things. So they were full, right? And that part was just really fun. It just felt to me, it was so resonant with the World Cup experiences I've had, and for it to be in my own town, there's so much pride in that. It was great.
Yeah, I was asked earlier today by a reporter, like, so how did businesses do? And it's like, well, if you had a TV and you were pouring beer, you crushed it. Like those are the 2 ingredients. Like, sorry, but you were going to say
that's what I was going to say. Build a watch party and they will come. Yeah. It was the motto of it.
Yeah.
What are you hearing from our other cities, peer cities counterparts? Are we just so like Seattle focused and we've gotten some nice praise and we think it was just so exceptional here? Was that kind of the rule around North America?
I think I had to actually go to Kansas City during those 3 weeks for work. I didn't go to a game there, but was talking with folks in the local organizing committee, and they were very pleased with Kansas City. But the challenge of having a non-downtown stadium just means you bifurcate that energy on a match day, right? And so you see the same thing happening in a lot of these venues where it's hard to go to these. To say the venues are spectacular, but when they're disconnected from the urban core, it's a different feeling. Look, our numbers aren't totally in yet, but our preliminary numbers for just the activations we did at Pier 62 and Soccer Celebration, 1 billion global impressions of a fan experience at the waterfront. And so my friends who work in soccer from around the world are the ones who are like, whoa, Seattle. Right? When we talk about our MLS commissioner, Don Garber, was here, executive leadership from the NWSL was in town. They were on the barge. They were down there. They were blown away. And then when you talk about sort of that residual effect of this image that has been seen 1 billion times around the world, there are people going, I want to travel to Seattle. Just
That's
like I want to go to Cabo Verde. I want to go to Cabo Verde.
That's hard to pull off in Kansas City. No shade on Kansas City. You can't pull a barge up to a pier.
Can't pull a barge to a pier,
And it's so fun to see how people use the Overlook Walk as this like stadium seating to look at 2
It was the
massive
best amphitheater.
screens. And somebody should ask James Corner, the designer, was that his intent? Did he envision that? I don't know if he did.
So.
Yeah, maybe.
I think that's one of my big takeaways from this, and Beth and I've talked about it, is our public realm spaces functioned exactly as designed. And you think about 30 years of piecemeal sort of things. The viaduct comes down, we think about Alaskan Way. The aquarium expansion, we think about this amphitheater. Pier 62. Pier 62 was put into the bid so that it was a big giant thing that we had to, but it wasn't a foregone conclusion. It was just that let's do waterside in. And so to be back there full circle and have that be the focal point, it was like the test for all of these investments, and they worked. And that makes me really excited as a Seattleite because that's intergenerational impact.
Yeah, I was so glad we were able to do the distributed watch party model, and some are still going. I was in Westlake earlier today for the England-Argentina match, and Occidental has one going. We'll have on Sunday, both places. And I know some cities stayed with a single fan zone for whatever reason, but I think Seattle went the right way.
Definitely, we went the right way for Seattle. And while I haven't talked to all of my counterparts in other host cities, I've talked to a few, mostly just quick conversations because they were still in the middle of theirs, some of them. But I think most host cities did a great job creating an environment that met their personality of their city and their residents, which is what it's all about. You want it to take on the personality of your city. And that they had great experiences with their marches to the match and things of that nature. But to Maya's point, not having the connection to the stadium.
Yeah, that's a long march in Boston.
It is a long march in Boston.
Doesn't mean people don't try.
So I think we had the best of all worlds in that case. But I also did hear that there was definitely some other host cities who were envious of our distributed fan celebration model. I think that's going to set a new trend, frankly, whether it's for any kind of future event that would have a fan fest. So I think that was a really a big win. And I've also heard that kind of more on the behind the scenes side of it, that the incredible collaboration from the law enforcement side, from Seattle police all the way through state and even at the federal level, that there was just this real sense of working together and solving problems together. And as we saw, there were just simply no incidents during World Cup. That's an incredible accomplishment for our city.
Huge achievement. Do each of you have a favorite moment from these last 5-6 weeks that like stands out?
The one that it's very personal to me and my family, but just I will never have another opportunity to be with my parents and my dad and my kids at a World Cup, probably in the same place at the same time. And to be in Seattle at Lumen Field for the U.S. national team game twice with my dad.
Who had a vision of this long ago and had something to do with the fact that it happened. This is on some
level a big piece of his life's work as a steward of the public realm, right? Not as working in the commercial place of it. It's pretty special. Like that photo will be one, that my kids will have forever too. Yeah. And I'm pretty thankful for it.
Yeah, I love that moment for your family, Maya, I have to say. I certainly had various times where it just really got me in the heart, looking at Pier 62 and the Overlook, or the thousands, tens of thousands of people marching for the USA. But one of my moments that just stopped me was being in the stadium for the USA-Belgium match. And the stadium singing the national anthem at the top of their lungs. I've never heard that at any game that I've been to. And I literally just had to stop and just take it in. It was just extraordinary.
And the Fox coverage of the energy that Seattle brought was so great to see them giving Seattle its due for just being such a rock star sports town and soccer culture, something we don't often get from
So John, how
national
about you?
media.
Yeah, what's your
My
favorite
moment? I think it was the Thursday night before the U.S. men's match, and I was down in Pioneer Square, and then just walked, and it was like 9:30, and just walking up First Avenue, and there were just people everywhere. Harbor Steps, there was a Neil Diamond sing-along. They were singing Sweet Caroline, like doing karaoke, and it was jammed. Reuben's Brews, the whole patio on First was full. And then Pike Place Market had the night market. So in front of the market was jammed, and Mexico fans were like doing dance parties. And then the backside of the market, people are just taking in the Olympics and Elliott Bay. And then you look down the waterfront, it was jammed. And there's just people everywhere. I'd never seen so many people in downtown out at night. And it was, sunny and beautiful and warm. And it was just like, wow, that just hit me of like this, what's come to our city and how our city has
embraced it.
And it was a mix of locals and folks from all over the place. So it wasn't in the stadium necessarily, but it was pretty cool. And that energy outside of the stadium before matches, after matches, on days when we didn't have matches, but we were showing matches was so cool.
And you, Shaq Diesel DJing, you can't beat that.
And then we mixed in some other.
It was loud that Saturday night.
I heard that. I wasn't there for that one, but I heard he went on a little later than planned. So
he did.
But what a time! And remind me when you both first got engaged in the bid to bring World Cup here as co-chairs of the effort, and how did you get roped into this?
Maya, you got to start because
it's chronological. Look, the way these things always start, right? So the request for information goes out to cities, and it goes out from U.S. Soccer, and so it went to the mayor's office. It was Mayor Murray at the time. It went to Visit Seattle and the Sports Commission at the time, which was housed in Visit Seattle. This is 2017, the summer of 2017, and of course, the day after Labor Day in 2017, all your information is due. Right, for that initial bid. So Ralph Morton, who was then the CEO for the Sports Commission, reached out to the Sounders and Adrian and the stadium and was like, okay, let's get this thing together. And we sort of said, how about we run with it? Adrian's like, how about we let us help. We know US Soccer and FIFA, like we'll work with David Young and the stadium. And so it was really that core team, but it was really soccer led. It was, folks like Chris Swenson, who've been at the city forever and been in these special events. It was Beth, but in a previous role was Seafair, because we knew we were going to have to do a lot of the same kinds of things that you had been doing for all those years. So you were involved. You were involved.
Right.
You just weren't in
safety, security.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
so
logistics.
it was a lot of it was, we've got a lot of good things built to do some of this stuff and to be responsive. If we put soccer and soccer culture at the heart of that and just rely on what is here, the infrastructure at the city, the wherewithal with special events, the volunteer corps that we have, the city itself wanting to be on a national stage for things like running sustainable events with an environmental mindset of being a welcoming and inclusive city. Like these are things that FIFA's asking us to respond to. So how do we respond to that with soccer at the heart of it? So that was way back in the summer of 2017, which feels like a lifetime ago. And then got really lucky in 2020. Ralph had moved on to DC, and Beth, you were done with Special Olympics, and you said yes to this crazy sports commission job.
Exactly. And then that's when Maya said, okay, we've got some work to do. We've got all these supplemental materials that were required to be submitted. And so she asked if I would be the co-bid chair with her so that we had a real focus to it from that point on. And then really that was a 2-year process before we were awarded it as a host city. And but then, of course, that's when you just shift gears once it's been awarded. And create the local organizing committee. Maya and I joined the board of that organizing committee, and it just been hit the ground running ever since.
And I love that. I remember one of the receptions where you were sort of whining and dining FIFA, and they were taking a look at us here in Seattle relative to other cities.
Site visit.
And we were really trying to lift up how walkable this downtown was as an asset and a reason they should be here. And they went out and kind of saw for themselves and walked around. And you just think about how that asset shined. And, that was so much a part of the experience for World Cup in Seattle. It's like,
we forget.
We meant it. It really is.
Well, and what was interesting is that there was one individual on the operations side who didn't really believe that it was that easy to walk from the stadium up to the Seattle Center area. And so we had shuttles for all of these FIFA VIPs, of course. And he said, I'm going to skip the shuttle. I'll meet you there. So he walked, and he actually beat us.
He beat us there.
Because it was typical Seattle downtown traffic, and he easily got there. And then we're able to take other FIFA representatives to the top of the Space Needle, and wanted to show them the true city footprint from that perspective. And that was when the light bulb went on, and they were like, we get it now.
Yeah.
We can see the stadium. We can see the waterfront. And here we are at the Space Needle. It just all became crystal clear. And it has proven out to be truly one of our greatest assets that we have. So I think I may have said this to you, John, that anytime I am lamenting that we don't have that giant, big space for events in downtown, I have to be reminded that it actually is to our benefit in all other cases. So you can't have the best of all worlds, but if I had to choose, I would choose the walkable downtown footprint.
We got a lot working for us.
Yeah.
Do you think that FIFA does this again with the Men's World Cup, of this distributed model? This was the first, right, of spreading it across.
Next cycle will be, right? So the 2030 is in Portugal, Spain, Morocco, and Argentina and
across just as many or more cities.
So probably
we don't know.
So I mean, look, there's a world. There are reports that are coming out where FIFA expands the tournament again. From 48 to 64 teams. That adds more matches. That's more stadiums probably. Morocco, Portugal, Spain, probably Spain, Portugal in particular is a little tighter footprint to manage for. the stadium infrastructure is already built, but Morocco is building a brand new, massive soccer cathedral as well that will be part of this experience. And so they're going to
So
have
I guess
two
the
or
question
three.
is, I mean, is this distributed model then kind of the way they do it versus you put it in Qatar or Brazil and they commit to building 10 stadiums and they're all in. But is this the way forward, do you think?
You know, I think we'll see, because after that World Cup, 4 years later, Saudi Arabia will have the whole thing.
Mhm.
So it'll be a single jurisdiction,
Yeah.
single country, more similar to Qatar. Obviously, 38 hasn't been awarded yet, and everybody's already talking here in North America because it could come back in 38. But so is Australia, New Zealand, right, and Indonesia now, actually, as a combined bid out of Asia. So it's interesting. I don't. I mean, I'm not inside FIFA, but I don't think they have a preferred model. I think this was a fabulous first test for them in terms of the level of coordination that has to happen across all these different jurisdictions and at multiple levels of government across 3 different, federal governments. And I don't think that gets less complicated in the future for them. So even if you're in a single state.
And we know with the women's in 2031 that we've got a shot at having them here.
Yes, FIFA has yet to formally announce the host countries. By and large, we believe it is a foregone conclusion, but that still has to take place, that it would be U.S., Mexico, Jamaica, Costa Rica. And then once that announcement takes place, which we're expecting at the end of this year, then the process again begins for bidding to be a host city. So I think we're in a great position at this stage, having just hosted the men's, but also the incredible commitment and passion for women's sports in Seattle. I think that's just a winning combination.
Yeah, those are some great ingredients.
Yeah.
I want a semifinal.
A semi?
Yes, Maria's already put in her order.
I want a semifinal. Seattle deserves
We're going to go
it.
big.
Yeah.
I agree.
What's happening with the grass? What happens to the grass at Lumen?
Yeah, so the rain just beat Portland on it 2-0 at the weekend. Soundly beat Portland on it.
We're not going to go tuck it away for 2031.
No, the Sounders will play on it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then it comes out starting Friday to get the stadium back to business for the NFL football season and the fall sprint for the Rain and the Sounders. So
what do you both see as the legacy from this endeavor for Seattle and beyond? I mean, this was really a statewide effort in a lot of ways and celebration, and there were watch parties and investments made throughout the state. What do you see as the legacy that's left?
I mean, look, we've talked about this a lot. Legacy was the heart and center of everything we did in Seattle. And I mean, it's one of the things that if you didn't get that message from Peter Tomazawa over the last 3 weeks, you were not listening. And it wasn't hyperbole. It was the entire purpose for doing this. So, my pecuniary interest is in soccer and the advancement of soccer. Like, that's what I care, gets me on my soapbox. So the legacy work we've been able to leverage through Rave Foundation in particular, and this idea that we have 52 small fields and mini pitches that are open for free play across the state of Washington, that we're enabled to make a commitment to get to 100 by the time the Women's World Cup comes here, most likely, right? Like those are game changing for communities, because it's now an accessible thing in your neighborhood to go play a game.
And those were built and developed as part of this whole endeavor of.
They were. They were. They were leveraged. The World Cup allowed us to scale right to that degree. And we thought we were being audacious to say, let's build 26 by 2026. And when we met that goal 2 years early, to double it in 2 years was because of the energy of the World Cup. We also we pitched a story to FIFA when they were here of this concept of every 8-year-old. What if every 8-year-old in the state of Washington created a core memory from this event? And core in the sense of having an incredible, amazing experience with their family. Core in sort of feeling pride in their city. Core in feeling connected to the globe and the world, right? And, you can't, I don't know how to measure that today, but I think we did a pretty remarkable job. I have a 7, almost 8-year-old. I have an 8-year-old nephew. This will be a core memory for them of being downtown, of being in the stadium, of being in those crowds, and will stand out for a lifetime. And so for me, that's the legacy, is this there's a generation of kids who feel pride in their city and their community. Maybe they discovered soccer for the first time, or maybe because they already play soccer, they're so happy that it was their sport that they're living this experience through. Again, I don't know how to quantify that, but I think it is a real legacy.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I think that the legacy projects that we know of, that Peter's talked about over and over in the best way, the Unity Loop, the art murals, I mean, the list goes on and on. I give so much credit to the staff of the local organizing committee who just steadfastly stayed committed to all of those projects. And that is not easy to do when you're also trying to execute on all of the fan celebrations and activations and all of that. But their commitment to meeting the community, the neighborhoods where they were, and bringing those legacy projects to them is just so commendable. I also think that, going back to what I said earlier, having locals fall in love with their city again is a tremendous legacy. And I think that we developed as a city and as a region, and even a state to some degree, a muscle memory for executing mega events and seeing how we can do it so collaboratively that lifted. I mean, it really is, rising tides situation. And that, to me, I think we've got a taste of it, and this community wants more. And that's exciting, because I think that we are primed and ready to do that.
And you think this success strengthens our hand with winning some of these future events?
I do.
Yeah.
It certainly positions us where we want to be, a position of confidence and really belief that we can deliver on these big projects. And it wasn't just World Cup. We saw it with the Super Bowl victory parade. Again, 0 incidences with 600,000 people downtown in a single day. To be able to repeat that and then repeat it for 3 weeks, that's an extraordinary achievement. So having that to build on is a great narrative when we are out selling Seattle and the region and even the state for the next big event.
The local chatter, over these last couple of weeks since the conclusion of the U.S. men's run here has been, oh my God, this was so great. This being the 5 weeks in Seattle and downtown and in our city. How do we keep it going? Do you have, either of you have thoughts on, what do you think people mean by that, and how do we keep it going? What are the elements that you think people are talking about if they're not getting specific? But it feels like there's this just vibe and energy of like, oh my God, that was so great. It should always be like this.
Yeah, well, I do think that it's a little bit of the high that we're still feeling, and who wants to lose that, right? So, the next couple of months will be focused on after action reports. A lot of different entities coming together to share their lessons learned and successes. That'll be compiled into a single after action report so that we can learn from that. And that's going to be a really important piece for how do we keep this momentum going. I know that the mayor's office is very interested as well in asking that question and getting answers to it. So bringing the right people to the table to say, now what? What is next, and what do we need to fix? There's certainly systems and processes that can be improved upon to make the whole execution and planning phases easier. So I think those are the kinds of things that we need to implement so that it's easy to say, yes, let's bring that next big event.
And I think even, and I'll even take it to the sort of the ground floor. I think one of the lessons learned, part of the reason why no incidents, like this idea that activated public spaces are part of the public safety. They need to be part of public safety. Public safety isn't about necessarily one mode. This idea that people out in community, and the more these, the beauty of our downtown of having all these little spaces, whether it's Occidental, whether it's in Westlake, whether it's at the waterfront, or activation in these spaces can happen. It doesn't have to take the World Cup to do that. Now, I know we, with Friends of the Waterfront, they've already got a bunch of them been like, ooh, how can we do something so big in this space? And so, even thinking about our spaces differently, about what they're capable of, right? I've never seen Occidental Mall so full of one event before,
Yeah.
right? And that's net new
Over
for Pioneer
days
Square.
and days and
Right.
days. Yeah.
And so, does that reignite a thought around music festivals or a different way to look at art? And I know the art fair's coming back. And so like, those are the kinds of gathering activities that can happen, 365 days a year. I don't think anyone expects February, Wednesday night, in the rain to be the time for those things. But it doesn't mean that we can't think about sort of that longevity and what activated space does for our community.
And activating at home games.
Right.
Every home game, it could have an activation in Occidental or the CID or these other locations to maximize what we're doing here. It doesn't have to be just that it is a World Cup type of an event. I think that's the shift that we need to start taking on to our general thinking of how do we make this feel more of a daily occurrence. It wouldn't be every single day, but it can be absolutely a regular cadence of our own home events that we do here.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody earlier today, and they were mentioning, maybe if we could rewind when we had that Taylor Swift concert and the Blue Jays were in town at the same time, like maybe we would have done a pedestrian zone around Pioneer Square and tried to like extend the vibes and the energy and events associated with those two, things that were taking place in the neighborhood. I mean, I think there's some lessons like that. To your point of like, how do we squeeze more out of what's happening in the stadiums and the energy that people want to experience before and after matches and games or concerts?
I hope that's what the residents here take away also is that every time we host an event, whether it's Taylor Swift or an MLB All-Star or a World Cup, we do take away lessons learned and we get smarter. And how do we keep this going? We learn from it and we apply it to the next event. That's the key. You can't just let it lie dormant, those lessons. So applying it to the next opportunity is the key to keeping this going.
Yeah, and all of us continuing to show up for
right.
the great things that are happening downtown. Nordstrom is shutting down Pine Street this weekend for a block party that they are repeating from last summer. And so there's still plenty of reasons to show up and take part. Well, thank you both for making time for this and more importantly for all your work to bring these matches here and create something that all of us got to take part in and memories that were made, whether we were 8 or 48. And
running around like we were 8 years old, because that counts too, right?
What a time and what we get to build on and look forward to for the other things that we're trying to bring to town. So thank you.
Well, Jon, and I also want to say thanks to the Downtown Seattle Association too in your leadership. Partnerships with the DSA and the Chamber and Visit Seattle, those were crucial to the overall success of this event. So thank you for what you brought to the
I think that was one of
too.
the great elements of this, of like so many different organizations all pulling on the oar in the same direction with the city. It's like, that's the playbook, and it worked.
And what I, just being in Pioneer Square for 2 weekends in a little staycation and going to, my kids we went and played on the soccer pitch. That's what we did. But hearing the chatter of literally about DSA ambassadors, this is not us throwing, but like it was evident to me that we do something different in this city with Occidental, like though they're not just there to be janitorial staff. They are ambassadors, and they are supportive of sort of these activated public spaces in a way that, residents but visitors notice as distinct, right? And so it's welcoming, it's inclusive, it feels safe, but it also just feels just joyful, right? Like it's just part of this ecosystem, and that's not something that happens just because of the World Cup. So,
agreed.
Yeah, joyful is my word of the year. I mean, we had it during the Super Bowl parade downtown. It's like if there was one, like that was just what came to mind, joy. Like all these people, joy, and we had 5 weeks of it.
Permeated the city.
Yeah, and how do we keep it going? And it's great when you can take part in that and help create it in an urban space in the heart of your city. So
agreed.
Great to have you both. Thanks for making time for this.
Of course. Thanks, Jon. Appreciate us being here.
Well, hope you enjoyed my conversation with Beth and Maya and our recap there of a spectacular showing by Seattle to the world. And it was so fabulous, and appreciate them making time to share their perspective and how we keep it all going. And stay tuned for an episode with Peter Tamazawa, who I Also sat down with Peter, of course, was CEO of the local organizing committee here in Seattle, the entity that worked so well in orchestrating these matches here in Seattle and orchestrating so many different organizations to play their role and play their part to make this such a success. I get his take on the experience here in Seattle and how we keep it going. So stay tuned for our next episode with Peter Tomazawa. Well, thank you for joining us for this episode presented by the Downtown Seattle Association with support from James Cito and production by Thread Theory.